The Omer law. So we're on Daf Maseches Gittin, the Bavli Daf Pei Beis Amud Aleph. Someone who divorces his wife, and he tells her b'shas masiro while he's giving the get to her, you're mutter for everybody except for so and so. So he's matter her. It's almost a complete sever, but there's a certain thing that connects him to her, which is the fact that he forbids her to be with so and so. Rabbi Eliezer matter v'chom meishim. Rabbi Eliezer says it's okay. The chum say it's forbidden. So what do you do now? According to the chachamim, it said yaseh. Yitalenu heimeno b'yachzer v'itnenu. You should take the get from and give it again a second time. But you should tell her you're mutter for everybody. But if he wrote this tonight, the stipulation inside the get itself, then even if he went ahead and he erased it, it doesn't matter. It's possible mitoicha. It's forbidden from the get itself. It's forbidden, so that's not okay. Okay. So far, so good. That was the Mishnah. Now we're up to the Gemara.
Why can't you just scratch it out and sign it? That he, what's the problem? Why does he have to write a whole new get?
Because the get, you can't just do that. The get is possible. It's a possible get.
Okay.
It has to be written lishma. It has to be written for the right reasons, for the right sakes. It has to be written correctly. Because it was written incorrectly, just scratching out. In other words, the fact that he added that t'nai apostles everything that he had written. It's not just that there's something incorrect in the get. Now it turns it into a possible get legamri. So unless he's going to have to erase everything, he can't just erase one line.
Yeah, got it.
They have a question. Hi, Elo chutzu el menasu. It says Elo lifleni. Hareyat muteres cholodim Elo lifleni. What does it mean? Is it except for so and so, or is it on condition that you don't marry so and so? So what's the difference? Chutzu uvechutzu depliga rabbanan alei de Rabbi Elazar the shir lo beget. Of a manas moidulei, mididava koltanai dalma. Maybe they only argue with Rabbi Eliezer if he uses the word chutz or elo. But if you would say al manas, maybe the chum would agree that it's fine. Because there's a al manas. It's like a t'nai, it's like a condition. Or maybe adrabin, maybe elo means al manas. In order for you not to marry so and so, and there Rabbi Eliezer will argue with the Chachamim, and he'll say that Elo or Al Manas is okay because it's like a T'nai. But if you say Chutz, except for that means there's mamish something missing in the get. So that's the question. Amar Ravina brings from Raya Toshma coming here. Sorry. Is that my baby? I hope not. All houses, if they have tzaras, they become tamei. If you see the spots, the specific spots that Torah says cause tzaras, they're mitame. Except for a house belonging to an idol worshiper, because the pasuk says it has to be a Jewish house. If you're going to say Ella means chutz, it makes sense. You can't say Ella means al manas. Doesn't make sense in order. It's only on condition that there's no tumah in the houses of Goyim, that there's tumah in the houses of the Yidden. But if you're going to say that there's tumah in the houses of Goyim, then the houses of Yisrael won't have tumah. Furthermore, do the houses of Goyim b'chalal have caused tumah? You can't say it's almanas because there's no such thing as having tumah for the houses of a Goyim. But Tanya, like it says in the Brayso, it's only the house of a Yid that have tumas tzaras, and not the houses of Goyim. It must mean chutz. It doesn't make sense to say that it means almanas. So if it means chutz in that case, in the case of tzaras, Shema mino. It will also mean chutz in our case, and therefore, by chutz is where the chachamim argue with him, but not almanas. Tosfos points out there has to be some option of her having relations with this person. Otherwise, it's not a real get. So it has to be almanas tinosi, and then theoretically she could be with him biznus, not al pitoiro, but from his tanai. But if he says almanas tivali v'leitinosi, then we'll say that that's a problem. It's a shear. However, Tosfos ultimately says, the Reed says, even if he says almanas leitinosi v'leitinosi tivali, the chacham will be moida that it's fine because it's beloshen tanai. Because it's in the wording of a tanai of a condition, it's as if she's sutra lakel. It's an interesting concept. Says the Gemara weiter. Masnissen deloi ki haitan. Our Mishnah is not like the opinion of so and so. To Tanya, it says in the Brayso, Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda said, "Lo nechlek Rav Eliezer b'cham al megarash asish tevar lo harei muteres l'chodim chutz mipleni she'enu megarashes." Machlokes is not in a case where you say chutz. Everyone will agree enu megarashes, even Rav Eliezer. Machlokes is in the case where you say almanas. Rav Eliezer, we're turning the page now to Daf Pei Beis Amud Beis. Mater l'chol adam chutz me'esei ish. Chacham say, Rav Eliezer says it's mutter, and the Chacham say it's forbidden. So it says the Gemara, my time of the Rebbe. So this is not like our Mishnah. Our Mishnah, we understand that it says Ella. Ella means chutz. No Machlokes says by chutz, and even by chutz, Rebbe Eliezer is matter. Gemara asks, my time of the Rebbe Eliezer, how could Rebbe Eliezer say it's fine? If you say chutz, that means there's a shear in the get. You're leaving something out in the get that she's not divorced to him because he doesn't allow her to marry so and so. He's holding her back. You don't. You have. It's on the table. The cup. Check on the table. I think you still have water on the table. Just like any tonight, chutz is like any time. Rabbanan kol tonight da'am le'shir le'beget tachashir le'beget. In other words, because he said not to marry so and so, the get itself. There's a problem with the get itself. The get is directly dealing with their marriage, and he's holding her back from marrying so and so. There's a shear in the get. So the Gemara says, "Must listen to Kim the b'chutz my time to Rav Eliezer." Okay, 1 second. I'll be back in a second. Just have to get him a cup of water.
Are we on side B now? I'm asking if it's B or A. B. Thank you.
Okay, so that was in the case of almanas. The Gemara asks, what about according to the way we explain the Mishnah, that it's talking about chutz? According to Rav Yosef, Rav Yehuda, Rav Eliezer is only matter if you say almanas. According to this, however, our Mishnah, even if you say chutz mamish, you don't say tanai, the lashon of tanai. You're not saying the wording of a tanai. You're saying chutz. Nevertheless, Rav Eliezer will say it's a kosher get. How is it possible? There's a shear in the get itself, and it's not in the language of a tanai. So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yana mishum zokim echad. Mishum zekum echad. Sorry, Rabbi Yana says in the name of a zokin echad. I don't know who that is. I'm sure we have a messiah of who that is. That Omar Krov yotzim invasive olchu ba'isa li'shacher. Afilu lo yitira li'shacher harei zay mugurashes. Why does it say v'hoisa leish acher? Even if she's only allowed to marry one person, it's still a kosher get. He's medayik from the pasuk. V'Rabbanon is in parentheses. Amri time the Rav Elazar. Hi ish l'chol ish v'ish. When it says ish, it means every ish. It has to be every ish. Weiter. Rav Yochanan Omar time the Rav Elazar mehocher. Rav Yochanan has a different raya for Rav Elazar that even if you're not allowed to marry certain people, it's still a kosher get. Even if the husband doesn't allow you to marry certain people, it's still a kosher get. He brings from a different pasuk. It says, "V'isha grusha meisha lo yikachu." If you're a woman divorced from her husband, they're not allowed to take. Kohenim are not allowed to take isha grusha meisha. Filu niskasha lemeisha nifsal minakuna. Am v'gito. Even if she's only divorced from her husband, and she's, in other words, to be with certain people, not with everybody. Rashi explains. He says, "Arei megureshes me many, but you're not allowed to be with anyone." This is called reach haget. It's placed in bekuna. The fact that it's placed in for kuna, we see it's a get. And here, kal v'chomer, in this case, where she's allowed to be with most people, just one person she's not allowed to be. Kol shekin, it's good. It's a kosher get. So a feeling is garsha lamisha nivsam nakuna. Even if she's only divorced from her husband, she's puzzled from kuna. Alma have a gita. So we see from here that it's a kosher to get, even if you're not allowed to marry certain people. But Rabbanon is a kuna shiny. According to the Chachomim, they're going to say, fine, she's also for kahuna, but it doesn't mean it's a kosher to get. Rashi says, kohenim have extra mitzvahs. It's a different story. It's place to the kahuna, fine. Place to the kahuna. Okay, boy, Rababa. B'kedushin heyach. What about by kedushin? In other words, let's say a person says, "You're mekudeshes for me, to be forbidden for everybody except for so and so, that you're still allowed to be with him." Is it a kosher kedushin or not? It's a very interesting question. It's a shayla both according to Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim.
What's the question? What's the question?
The Gemara will spell it out. The Gemara is going to spell it out.
The other thing seemed, it didn't seem like a question at all. Like, because a person who's divorced is not allowed to marry a kohen, that's halacha. It has nothing to do with the person's individual setting aside a certain.
The wording of the pasuk is isha grusha, a divorcee. So if she's considered a divorcee, she's considered a divorcee. That's where Rabbi Eliezer looks at it. In other words, it's the same word that's used. Well, actually, over there it's v'yotza v'haisa lishachar, whatever. But megureshes. Why would we differentiate? If it's enough to make her not allowed to marry kohen, where it uses the word isha grusha misha, should also be enough to make her be allowed to remarry. In other words, in cases where he only says she's not allowed to marry one person, she should be allowed to marry anyone else. Her marriage should be over. But the Chum ultimately say like what you're saying. That it's what do you want to say? That it's a klolistic thing and not an individual?
Right.
What do you mean?
I could see the Rabbi Eliezer's point. Like the husband feels that this other person caused the divorce, so he doesn't want,
Oh, you're saying in the logical, why would a person do that? Interesting. Like let's say she was having an affair, so he says not with him.
Not with him. Anybody else, but not with him. Like I get that.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, we're looking at it on a legal sort of way, but you're looking at it from like logical, why the husband would. Right, I hear what you're saying. So the Gemara now asks, what about by Kiddushin? So obviously it's a whole different ball game. Kiddushin, it's the positive, it's not the negative. It's not the leaving of her husband. It's joining, creating a new union. So how could you have a union when he says you're still allowed to be with someone else? You can't have two husbands, obviously. So how could you even compare? So the Gemara explains, it's a shayla according to Rav Elazar. There's psukim. In other words, state that we brought two psukim: isha grusha misha or misha acher, yotzav ha'isa isha acher. Those are the two rayas. So we have psukim to teach you that it's kosher again. Aval hosam kinyan mali b'inyan. By kedushin, it's an andre zach ligamri. It's a whole different ballgame. You need to have a kinyan. You have to have an acquisition, and obviously, it's not a good acquisition. Yeah. Maybe because it says v'yotzav ha'isa, we have a hekesh, and actually Rashi says an eisen nazach. I would think to say that even if it's kosher kedushin, it should override what he says, and obviously you can't have the option to marry someone else. Rashi says maybe there's a hekesh, and she's allowed to become betrothed to the second guy. It's like a gzeres hakosov, sort of, maybe. And then we have the same question according to Rabbi Elazar. According to the Chum, the reason why they pass it by the get is because there's no krisis. But over there, by kedushin, you just need some sort of a kinyan. Maybe maybe there's a hekesh, so just like it doesn't work for get, doesn't work for kedushin. After the question, he had the answer. Bein the Rabbi Elazar, bein the Rabbanan, be'inon v'yotzav ha'isa. According to Rabbi Elazar, it is kedushin. According to the Chachamim, it's not kedushin because of this hekesh.
What did you say about kedushin?
That according to Rabbi Elazar, it's a kosher kedushin.
If he says kosher kedushin, if he says what?
If he says you're kedushin to me, you're forbidden to everybody except for so and so.
Oh, except for so and so.
Is he talking about polygamy? That sounds so weird.
It's not only polygamy, it's one woman having two husbands, which sounds impossible, right?
Right.
So Abaye asks, this is according to Rav. This is according to Rav Abba. Abaye says in Tim Saloimer Yisa to the Rav Abba, if you're going to say that Rav Abba's words stand, that according to Rabbi Eliezer, you could have a kedushin. Rashi says, let's say, for example, Reuven was Makadosh this woman for everybody except for his brother, and then Shimon comes as Makadosh her except for Reuven.
Oh, look at the
David, you went on mute.
Okay, it's there.
David, you went on mute.
Oh, we lost his picture. Are you there, David? I think he logged out.
He went on mute, so let's give him a minute to get back.
He's on mute?
Yeah.
Oh.
I see it on my screen. He's on mute.
You'll probably realize that in a few seconds.
Sorry. Baya says like this. I'm Rabbi. If you're going to say that Rabba's words are Makuyim, Bo Reuven v'Kitcha Chutz B'Shim V'Hashim v'Kitcha Chutz M'Reuven. Let's say Reuven and Shimon are brothers, and they were each Makadosh the woman except for their brother. V'Meisu Shneim, then they both died. B'Siyab Bemes Levi. V'Einani Koyde Ba'isha Shnei Meisim. L'Choydo. We had a case in Maseches Yevamos if you have three brothers and one of them dies, and the second one didn't have via with her, he just did mimer, he just declared intent to be miyavimer, and then he dies. Just chalitza with the third brother, because it says if there's zikas yavam echad, however, not zikas shnei yavam. So because of the mimer of the second one, she didn't get married to him, but there's a certain zika. So even if you're going to say that according to the Rabbi Yabba, Kedushin in such a case is considered Kedushin, nevertheless, in this case, it's not going to be considered Eisha Shnei HaMesim. My time Kedusha Deruv Nahani, Kedusha Deshim Lo Yahanu. The reason is because Kedusha Ruvain is considered Kedusha, but not Kedusha Shimon. Because Shimon said Chutz Meruvain, he didn't add anything. He didn't add anything to her Kedushin. The whole idea of Kedushin is you're Oyser on the whole world. You're Makadisher and Oyser on the whole world. But in this case, Shimon is not being Oyser on anybody extra. Reuven already asked her on everybody except for Shimon. Shimon is marrying her and saying everybody except for Reuven. So there's no addition. So because there's no addition, it's not considered Eisha Shnei Mesim, and she's going to be allowed to do Yibum with Levi. So the Gemara asks, Elo ve'elo Eisha Shnei Mesim eichem hashkachas like again Shabbat Reuven v'kitcha chutz v'Shimon. If Reuven comes and he's Mekadisher except for Shimon, about Shimon v'kitcha stam, and then Shimon is Mekadisher without saying chutz mi Reuven, the Kedusha Reuven anu l'meisra alma. The Kedusha of Reuven makes her forbidden to the world. The Kedusha Shimon ahanu l'meisra Reuven, then Shimon will make her forbidden to Reuven. Wow. Very difficult situations. Boy Abai asked the question. Omer lo harei al teres l'chladnu chutz meruvim v'Shimon. V'chazor v'omer lo l'Reuven v'Shimon. Let's say he says you're mutter for everybody except for Reuven and Shimon. And then he tells her l'Reuven v'Shimon. Then he tells her even mutter for Reuven and Shimon. Mao mi amrin my dosa shara. Do we say what was forbidden is now permitted? But Dilma my dosa shara my shara also, or maybe it's everything switches around. What was forbidden will become permitted, and what was permitted will become forbidden. In other words, so originally she was mutter for everybody except for Reuven and Shimon. Now maybe she's only mutter for Reuven and Shimon and forbidden for everybody. If you're going to say what was forbidden will become permitted, so let's say he only says Reuven, you're only permitted for Reuven. Mao Reuven would Shimon, is it only for Reuven and so too Shimon? And the risk that he says Reuven is because he started with Reuven. Or maybe specifically for Reuven. Or maybe if you're going to say specifically for Reuven, what if he said Shimon? The Shimon would in the Reuven, specifically for Shimon, sold to Reuven, behind the cover Shimon, and this that we say Shimon is because he left it. Maybe specifically Shimon is because that was the last thing he said, or maybe specifically Shimon. If he says Afla Shimon, even for Shimon, Afa Reuven koy, the Afla even is Reuven plus Shimon, maybe even Shimon on top of the world. We don't know the answer.
Are they talking about this whole thing about we're back to Gittin?
About what?
We're back to get. You're permitted to everybody in the world besides Reuven and Shimon that we're back to get, or we're talking about Kedushin that you're permitted to me. I'm taking you, but you're also can shack up with the other guy.
I forgot to say we're back to get. You're right. I'm sorry. We're back to get.
And the other question is, why did they make the question so complicated on Kedushin? Why don't they just bring it back to first principles? When you're marrying one guy, you can't have a relation with another guy, period. They turned it into like it's the brother or not the brother. Like
polygamy, you're saying,
yeah.
or like with multiple men.
Right. Why don't they bring it back to first principles?
How could they? You're saying how could they accept what Rabbi Abba is saying? They should have said this can't be. It's not possible.
Right. Or they're trying to disprove it by the fact that it would turn into the Yavama. We know you can't do it in the Yavama. Like they're going.
Well, Abai wanted to say that you could do it with the Yavama.
What?
Abai wanted to say that you could do it with the Yavama in the case of the Yavama.
He's having a case that he couldn't do it. If both of them died, then you can't.
No, he said you could because Shimon is not adding on anything. Reuven already said she was forbidden to everybody except for Shimon, and Shimon is saying the exact same thing. So therefore they are allowed. She is allowed to do Yibum to the third brother. I mean, I suppose it's a good question. I'm saying it goes against the whole principle of marriage. The halacha is obviously not like Rabbi Eliezer, but it doesn't really help. I mean, ultimately, we're not talking about marriage. She obviously can't have relations with two men at the same time. We're talking about kedushin. She's betrothed. But if someone will consummate the marriage and get fully married, she's going to be with him and not with anybody else. You obviously can't have a relationship with multiple men. That doesn't make any sense. Seems like only the kedushin. But I'm not sure. It's a good question.
But even kedushin, once you're kedushin, you're also to anybody else.
Right. I guess the chiddush is if you could do it by get, you could also do it by kedushin, which is a big chiddush, obviously. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, the Gemara will go on and say how they all they slugged up Rabbi Eliezer. We'll see in a second. Both with get and kedushin. That's the next whole sugya. So I guess we'll read through it until the two dots. Give me a second. I just have to get a tissue. Okay, let's continue. Taner Rabbanan. So we'll see what they did with Rabbi Eliezer. After Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, I think. After Rabbi Eliezer passed away, there was 4 skenim that came in to answer his shita. These are them. Rabbi Yosef Glili, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Kiva. Okay, so each one of them have a reason why you can't say Rabbi Eliezer shita. Nena Rabbi Tarfon v'Yomar, even though he has a psukim to back him up. Rabbi Tarfon spoke up and he said, let's say she gets married to the brother of the one she's not allowed. We're talking about get. We're focusing on get now. So she goes after, she gets divorced, she gets married to the brother of the person she's not allowed to marry. Right? He says you're allowed to live with anybody, you're allowed to marry anyone besides her so-and-so. And she gets married to his brother. And then he dies without children. This husband is being oiker, the whole idea of yibum. Mitzvahs yibum. Megala, Torah can't say, according to him, the way he understands, Torah can't say that it's a kosher get if you're going to, through this type of get, you're going to take away yibum. Can't be. It's not possible. So right that it's not a kosher get. That's Rabbi Tarfon's right. That's why he doesn't agree with Rabbi Eliezer that he could have a half a get, that she's only allowed to marry so and so, these people. Then Rabbi Yosef Glili v'Omer Heichen Matzinu also lezeh mutar lezeh. Rabbi Yosef Glili then spoke up and he said like this: where do we find that you can be forbidden for so and so and allowed to be with so and so? Also lakel. Mutter lakel. So someone who's Osir is going to be Osir for everybody, and someone who's mutter is mutter for everybody. It can't be Christus. Christus means you're mutter for everybody, and also vice versa, like Kedushin, like my father was saying. Kedushin means you're forbidden for everybody. You can't have halfway. It's not a Christus to have half a Christus. Then Rav Elazar ben Azariah of Omar, Rav Elazar ben Azariah said something else. Christus davra kedis bein elim. Christus is something that separates between him and her. Lamat the shen Christus. It can't be Christus if it doesn't separate. Then Rabbi Kiva of Omar, Rabbi Kiva then said, let's say she got married to somebody in the shuk, someone some not related. And then she had children. She became a widow, a divorcee. And then after her second divorce, or after she was widowed from her second marriage, she got married to the person that she was forbidden to be with. You're going to say that her original get is going to be batul retroactively, and her children from her second husband are now going to be mamzerim. So she was married with a second husband for 10 years. She had children from him, and then all of a sudden, in her third marriage, she marries the person she wasn't allowed to marry from the first marriage. So now all of a sudden, her children from her second marriage are going to be mamzerim. It can't be a Christus. The Torah wouldn't say that something is a get if it's possible to bring you to have children or mamzerim. Can't say a get will cause you to have children or mamzerim. That already is not shaykh. That's what Rabbi Kiva says. Let's say the person she was not allowed to be with was a kohen. And then the person who divorced her dies. Her first husband dies. So she was divorced, besides to the kohen. So what's going to happen is a brilliant concept. She's going to be almana for the kohen. She was never divorced to him. She was still forbidden to be with him. So she's going to be a widow for him, who grusha etzel kol adam, and a divorcee for everybody else. The kal v'chomer. Grusha shikala sura b'shvil tzad gerish and shabal. Grusha, which is kala. In other words, she's forbidden because there's a tzad gerish and eshes ishi chumur like kol shekin. If she's considered eshes ish, she's considered she's partially divorced basically for everybody besides to this guy, and she's considered married to him. So there's a tzad eshes ish. If she's not going to be allowed to marry this guy because there's a part of her that's divorced, the fact is, if she's getting divorced and there's a part of her that's still married because she's forbidden to be with so and so, that's for sure should make her not allowed to live with anyone. Should disqualify her whole gerushin. There's a part of her that's still eshes ish. Well, it can't be that this is a Christus. Rabbi Kiva gave two reasons. Everybody else gave one. He gave two reasons. Rabbi Yeshua told them, you cannot all of a sudden after he passes away try to answer with the lion. In other words, he might have had answers. All of a sudden you're all coming up with reasons why his shit is not good. Rava said, all of them there's a pircha, except for Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Tanya Nabi Ochi Amar Rabbi Yasi. He says, I agree with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah over all of them. So again, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was Christus has to be a dover akedes beinay levina. Christus has to be something which totally divides between him and her. And this is therefore for Christus.
Pircha means answer.
Okay, so what? Oh, pircha? Pircha means pircha. There's no way we can break his words, like a question, refutation, sort of. Only Rav Elazar there's no refutation. Dover hakedis beinei levinah can't be a kosher get, and vice versa. By kedushin, it can't be a kosher kedushin. Has to be a full right. You have to be fully betrothed to one. You have to have a full kinyan. You can't be half a kinyan, half an acquisition. So the next blad so is dealing with this brisa. Maybe we'll stop here and we'll do it. We'll learn it. We'll learn it tomorrow.
Okay.
Excellent. Fascinating.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, are you done?